Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in again. Sorry for the messy hair and it looks like it's all wet. It's because it's very humid out today. As you can see, I got my window open. I wanted to go over a movie that I watched recently, which I was very motivated and inspired by. As you probably saw from the title, what it is, it's called Courageous. I wanted to talk about it for a little bit, and I think now is a good time to do it. So recently I've been working towards a goal of mine that I personally thought I could never accomplish. I've started to eat healthier again lately. I've switched from the fast food diet to the meat, veggies, and whatnot diet, like an actual food diet. And I've actually seen a big improvement in my day-to-day life with it. I'm able to go for walks a lot longer than normal, go for bike rides. It's really nice. And the reason why is because I want to try to go for a goal of mine, which is to be in law enforcement one day, to go to the training course at the community college and become a police officer. I know that, police officers, all that kind of talk, it's sort of a hot button issue at the moment with most people, and I understand why most people have a problem with members in law enforcement. But ever since I was a child, I always wanted to become a police officer. When I was 6 years old, probably four, somewhere between 4 and 6, my mother actually took me to the local police station. And I don't know if it was a friend or someone that she knew, it must have been. But she took me there as like a sort of field trip almost. And I got to go to the jail center. I got to see what the jail cells look like for temporary holding prisoners, and the police officer even closed it and locked me in and said that the real reason why my mom brought me here was because I was being a bad boy. Just one of those things that they do. And I always thought that they were really cool guys. They were so cool in their outfits, and they just looked cool as a child, like a 4 to 6 year old child. They looked cool. As I got older, of course, they became less cool and more heroic. The men and women that work in law enforcement, not a lot of people realize that, like, they put their lives on the line every day for what they do to keep us safe, keep their communities safe. They keep drugs out of the streets and out of hands of children. They help innocent people who've been injured or who are suffering and from like psychological problems or physical problems. And they get people who are a danger to themselves and others off the streets. So when my grandparents gave me this film to watch a while back, I was immediately drawn to it, like a moth to a flame, so to speak. Before I go any further, I just want to say there will be spoilers up ahead. So if you haven't watched this movie, please watch the movie if you're interested. If you're fine with spoilers, then that's on you. Don't blame me, please. Okay? But I encourage a lot of people to watch this movie. It is a very good movie. I give it like 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, 10 out of 10. Great film. And it's also, I just not realized, I also learned that it's based off of a real life event. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the family that have been affected for this film, for the actions that created the film. All right, so the movie, as we know, is called Courageous. It's based on real life events, and it follows the story of the main character, Adam Mitchell, and his fellow deputy sheriffs, Shane Fuller, Nathan Hayes, and David Thompson. The story mainly focuses on the male protagonist's journey through balancing their work and family time and what it really means to be a father for not just their families, but towards everyone around them. This, to many guys out there, is a hard riddle to solve. Even for myself. What does it mean to be a man, let alone a father? I guess the easy answer most people will say are his actions. If you have an answer, put it in the comments below. I'd like to hear your answer before we continue on. To me, I say that's a very vague answer. It just gets to the surface. It doesn't go deeper into what a man or a father should be, but I want to up it one more. I want to bring us elevated to an even bigger question. What is a godly man? And for the longest time myself, I never knew what a godly man was. I, to be honest, bought into a narrative that I believe wasn't very healthy for me and for a lot of other men, which we will be getting into. But I believe that this movie not only explains or gives us an answer, but also what it's like working in the life of law enforcement officers. Because we can see stuff on YouTube and whatnot, but it's totally different when you're in the field. I can only imagine what it's like. I'd love to know, which is why I'm working towards my goal, but not a lot of people understand what it is that officers really go through. Adam Mitchell has two children. He has an older son named Dylan and a younger daughter, Emily. He's your typical no father, especially towards his son. The son, he wants to compete in running events with his father. He wants to do stuff like that. And his dad's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm an old man. And there's a scene in the movie where his daughter she's dancing and she asks her dad to start dancing because they're waiting for the dad's friend Shane. And she's like, Dad, come dance with me. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. Through the first act of the movie, we kind of get this story that, he doesn't really spend too much time with his children. He spends a little more time with his daughter than he does his son. But even then, it's to like an extent. And then one day, Adam, while he's working on a shed with another of the main cast, he is working with this character on a shed. Shane comes and picks him up and says, your daughter is in the hospital right now. And we learn that the daughter died in a car accident through drunk driving. She passed away, and it was a dark time for the whole family. They even touched on a question that I think is very important to look at as Christians. I've come across this kind of question, not this exact wording question, but a similar phrasing of this question. And the wife asks, she says, why did she die and not the drunk driver? Why was it her? Why would God let her die and let the drunk driver live? This is a question that not only is near and dear to me, but it's also a question that I want to tackle in more detail in my next podcast, so please stay tuned for that. After this tragic event, Adam decides that he needs to be a better father to his son, Dylan, before he loses another child and it's too late. His friends all discuss, they all come together after the grieving and everything, they all come together, and Adam proposes an idea for this resolution on becoming better fathers for their families. Then all the men change their old habits and start becoming real fathers for their children. Nathan spends more time with his daughter and connects with her, so that way she doesn't hang out with the wrong crowd. Shane, who I believe is divorced, yes, he is divorced. He spends time with his children more, and also yeah, I think it was Dylan Thompson. He reaches out to a girl that he met, I think at college or high school, that he had a child with, and he wasn't ready for it. He was scared. He was surprised. It's quite the story, because like towards the end, they have like a great message. Unfortunately, Shane he does some stuff and he ends up in jail, unfortunately. I think that the message that they give is a very good message. I think a lot of people should watch the movie because it touches up on a lot of these questions that I've been proposing. Like, what is a man? What is a godly man? What does it mean to be a father? And we're going to get right into that, into what I believe these answers are. But we're going to be mainly focusing on what is a godly man, because I think that is more important than any of the other questions. Because if you're a godly man, I think that kind of tackles the whole thing, it just gets it all meshed together. What is a godly man? As a Christian, how should I be a godly man? I'd like to look at a few of these verses here. Before I I read from the ESV version or the NIV. You can read from whatever version you want, but just if you wanted to know what I'm reading, that's what I'm reading. I'm reading ESV 1 Corinthians 16:13-4. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. The next one I want to read is Deuteronomy. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Then the other one is 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Galatians 5:22 through 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. What I believe that these verses are showing us is that to be a godly man, we are to stand strong and courageous in our faith and watchful of others. To act like a man by strength in faith with examples in our speech and our actions to ourselves and to others around us, executing the fruits of the Spirit in every action we take, while still showing love as Christ did for his church. A lot of people will say, but what about him getting angry at the Pharisees and whatnot? Well, that's kind of a weird topic. I personally believe that he still showed the Pharisees love by calling out their sin. Sure, he was harsh. Sure, he flipped tables. Sure, he, called them out on their wicked ways and whatnot. And sure, he says that they were not his flock, but that doesn't mean that he still didn't love them. Because if you don't love somebody, are you going to help them? Like, are you going to tell them that what they're doing is wrong? What's the point if you don't love them? Who cares, right? But that's not what Jesus does. He loves everyone, so he treated everyone, even those who wanted him killed, this way. And I believe that when he says we need to be Christ-like, this is exactly what he means. Unfortunately, today's society is hell-bent on teaching young males that the way to get a girl to become a real man, to become the man, the guy, is to be a monster, to get absolutely shredded, to look down on others, especially women, to hold yourself up higher than any elevation can. Basically, turning yourself into a figure others can worship, turning yourself into a god. This way of thinking in today's society is also referred to being as an alpha male. There's a lot of podcasts and a lot of shows out there that talk about this kind of thing where they say you gotta wake up, you gotta have like a scheduled routine and whatnot. And I'm not saying that a lot of what they're saying is incorrect. I think it is important to wake up, like wake yourself up at a certain time, get yourself ready, set your bed, get yourself cleaned and ready for the day and tackle it head on. But a lot of these other things that they're spouting, I don't believe to be very healthy, biblically and spiritually healthy. It's not ideal in my opinion. And like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this certain male terminology they use is the alpha male. They tell you that you need to be the alpha. You got to be the pack leader. You got to be the strong one. You got to be the one that everyone looks to, that worships you and thinks you're this great figure. And I'm going to tell you right now, again, that's dangerous. There's only one alpha, and that's God. If we look to Revelations 22:13, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. There's also a couple other verses in Revelations that also say the same thing, but this one is just very there. It's right there for you, clear as day. God is the alpha. We should not hold ourselves in that kind of way. Holding ourselves up to these standards, I believe, is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous mindset for adolescent males, when instead we should be teaching them to hold the godly ways. Instead of pride, they need humility. Instead of physical strength, build your spiritual strength. Don't make yourself an idol. Worship God and God alone, because through God, anything is possible. Matthew 19:26. But Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. I hope that this message reaches you spiritually and gives you a better understanding of today's question that I posed. What is a godly man? If I misread a verse or said something falsely or even left something out, please let me know in the comments. I pray for you all, and I want you all to have a blessed day. Goodbye.